TS is actually a company, core business in PLM, what we call PLM, focusing in manufacturing software and technology in CAD/CAM CAE, and other specializing manufacturing solutions. We have office in Singapore and Malaysia. Malaysia, we are located in JB, Penang, and PJ location. So we have actually Siemens leading PLM solution provider in the regions, and also what we call a smart partner, appointed, accredited by Siemens. And we also a regional partner of a ZW Soft, which is a similar PLM solutions provider. The products that we actually carry and sell, they target in different segments. So there are some solutions, Siemens solution fit very well. Some solutions, ZW Soft fit very well. So we target different market. In general, ZW Soft seems to fit very well a lot of SME customers that we have in the region. And Siemens do have solutions that very extensively cover different type of market and industries as well. Some of the other solutions that we also been distributing and managing and selling in the regions involve 3D scanner and printers. And we are seeing this quite interesting products over the years that we have actually sell to some of our customers. Doing 3D printings and printers are one of the products that is very hot right now for a lot of manufacturing companies as well. So our company, it's considered small. I would say we'll consider ourselves as an SME as well. We have about 20 people, but we proud ourselves of our technical expertise because of the 20 people full-time employee we have. 10 of them are our technicals. So we provide consultancy, professional services to our customers in their manufacturing projects. What we do is we value add into the projects, help them in terms of some design, some simulations, or even some drawing as well. Occasionally, customers do leverage on our engineering services so that we go on site to support them for some of the projects that they have. And last but not least, we have this learning and development where we're focusing on webinars and training services. The webinar is free for participant who registers, and then training services is a new services that we're focusing a lot, particularly in this period of time right now during the COVID-19 crisis. And our company, we drive ourselves with a business goal and motto as whatever you go, we're here to get you there. Basically, we feel that what we do as a company in terms of the technology, the solutions, the services, we are helping customers to get to where they want to be. This is our goal as an organization. The training services that we offer, there are three broad categories. One is the online self-paced learning. There are a number of products that we offer in terms of online self-paced learning, including Siemens, Autodesk, Katia, Dassault Systems, various products that's available. But the second product, which is the expert learning, which is the most popular one, where before the COVID-19 crisis, we were doing a lot of training in classroom, in training room, at customer sites. But because of the lockdown, we couldn't really do that anymore. So we actually have to convert a mixture of model whereby video delivery with our trainer and consultant to actually conduct a training based on a 4 weeks training program. Plus the third one, which is our training services, we offer customized training. And this is typically a company in the manufacturing industries where they have a projects. They want us to specifically customize the training for a group of engineers and for a team of personnel within the organization. So, all right, let me just move on to talk a little bit about this now. Digitalization and Industry 4.0. This is basically, I guess, manufacturing has actually changed a lot. Traditionally, manufacturing is the usual where you put the manpower in, put the workers in, and then you manufactures, go into mass productions, you create tools, you create prototypings. But nowadays, I think manufacturers is looking at it very differently now. The industry as a whole has changed, has evolved a lot. How do we get to a stage of Industry 4.0? Let's take a look at the history first. The first is the Industry 1.0, which is the industrial revolutions. basically using mechanical production, using water, steam power as the first phase. And then in 19th century, when we move into the industry 2.0, where we deal with mass productions, all right, we division and label, which is what we are used to, right, currently. A lot of the manual labor will go into it, produce products using electrical energy to drive the machine, drive the tools. And then when we went into industry 3.0 in the 70s, a lot of electronic and IT come into play. So, which I mentioned to you earlier, right? The example I gave it to you in Seagate 1996, 1997, where a lot of the IT infrastructures drive the manufacturing. They drive the tools, drive the machines, and which is part and parcel of the change. And now since 2015 until now, probably another 5 more years maybe, we'll see that the industry 4.0 is been focusing mainly on industrial revolution in automation, right? And so what they try to do in this digital world is bridging integration, the physical and virtual world into an industry 4.0 model. We're seeing a lot of change, I think a lot more obvious in probably Europe and America area. We're seeing some change here in this region, China, Korea, Japan, some in Singapore as well in this region. But it is becoming more and more critical, and I will share with you why we think this is a very important industrial revolutions that we need to consider and look at it as well. So the heart of industry 4.0, it's all about machine, about tool. All right. So I think we can see this in electronic industry, particularly the mobile design, mobile manufacturers, the automotive industries, the aerospace. Toolings and machine is actually the key for the industry 4.0, right? If you recall, just now we mentioned at the industry 1.0, 1.2, probably part of 3.0, a lot of manual manufacturing and assembly process going on. But 4.0, it's all about machine and tools. This is what is it about. So digitalizations is just a term sometimes is interchangeable with industry 4.0. Some people use that interchangeable. Basically, it involves some of these acronyms that I'm sure a lot of you have heard before, right? AI, artificial intelligence, IoT, smart manufacturing, automations, things like that, advanced robotics. So basically, what does it say? It's basically saying that in the traditional manufacturing world that we used to have a physical world assembling manufacturing products. So now there's this digital world that is created, technology surrounding the digitalizations for manufacturing company to actually look at a virtual world, right? To look at product design. This is what the concept is all about for manufacturing. And we see this a lot of change in a lot of companies embracing this change. So here, this particular survey here done by VLSI Research in 2018, it's basically demonstrating the change over the years, how digital innovation has driven new opportunity. So in the first area, it's called a compute stage, right? So it's all the standalone PC, mainframe, things like that. So I remember the earlier days of my career, I was doing AS400 and System 36 IBM, and those are really old systems, so that tells you how old I am. Doing programming, so that's a compute, using computer power, mainframe, standalone PC network together. Then we move on to the connected stage, whereby a lot of the communication, networking, electronic, mobiles are all interconnected together. So device to device, connected together, sharing information, passing information. And then somewhere around 2015, 2016, we move into a digital world where Internet of Things, whereby now we need to create a digital virtual environment, not a physical world. No longer it's a physical world, right? For various reasons. It could be the real estate cost that is too expensive, so you need to pilot it in a virtual world. rather than set up in physical world. So various reasons. The market size is potentially at about 2.5 trillion US dollar. This is what it is. And if you notice the bottom there, there's a message there, which is since 2000, more than half of the Fortune 500 company has actually disappeared. Why? They didn't embrace this digital technology and the latest technology in terms of coping, keeping themselves up to speed in terms of some of the changes and technology. So let's just shift gear now to talk a little bit about some of the challenges. So I'm going to share with you a little bit some of the challenges and trend where I see the manufacturing industry is going through. Bear in mind, I'm not just referring to the large manufacturing company that is relevant here. Here, this is also applicable for SME. SME could also look at some of these trends, and they can also look at some of the technology. They can embrace them as well for their survival. So let's take a look at these two documents on the left and on the right. Is there any difference? Do you see any difference? Right, maybe they don't, but they are basically same document printed out on a piece of paper. But guess what? The left one was produced by a typewriter, so the industry 1.0 to 1.2. And then the right-hand side was produced by a laptop printed out probably on laser printer or dot matrix printers. And this is an industry 3.0 type of change. And is there any difference between the two documents? Yes, the output is the same, but how they get there, the end result is actually very, very different. You have a typewriter that you type, you couldn't edit. Yes, you could get the final result of a letter, of a document, but the laptop, you could edit it, change it, and then type it, modify it, add pictures. So in a way, there are big difference in terms of a digital age. Even though the end result is the same, but how you get there, the journey to get there with the end result are very different, right? Because efficiency here, it's one that really is striking, making the difference between the two output of the documents. Efficiency in terms of how fast you can produce the document, effectiveness in terms of how you can actually edit the document. Typewriter, you couldn't do it. Obviously, you can do the standard traditional white paper, liquid paper to make the correction and then make changes. So there are some efficiency, there are some turnaround time in terms of producing this document in a shorter time frame as compared to a typewriter. So it does make the difference in terms of digital technology. So let's take a look at the first new trend, right? New technology. In manufacturing companies, there's a lot of changes in terms of the technologies that has actually changed and evolved. I mentioned to you Seagate 1996, and then 1998, they have actually embraced robotics. And one of the things that they actually embraced was, well, they feel that this is the way for them to go, right? Why? Because the technology is going to shape in terms how they produce the products, how fast they are able to come out with a design, how are they going to compete with other competitors, not within their location, but around the world as well. So the new technology is going to provide more opportunity for business for all sizes to compete more equally. That's why I said this technology or solutions that we are referring to, not necessarily it is an advantage for large MNCs. The SME can also embrace that. It is the same because it gives them equal footing and compete in equal space. And what's the implication of that, right? The implication is that because the customer is going to demand more market conditions and the competitive pressure, the suppliers, the manufacturers need to actually embrace some of these technology changes. Later, I'm going to give you a few examples how some of this technology has changed, right? And then how we are using it currently, even in this COVID-19 crisis situation, which is a very interesting way of adopting the technology, using it differently. So the second trend, which is globalization. Some of you may say, well, globalization has been here for a long time, right? It is true. We have actually a company, manufacturer company, let's say in Malaysia, but then you only supply to your local domestic market, but you started to branch out, supply to other countries. Yes, that's globalization, but this globalization, what we're referring to, is very different. What do I mean by that? It is not just about a competitive pressure for low cost. It is also about quick turnaround product time to market. In other words, when you have one product that you are producing A to B for the end result, now if you can cut down your time to market by half, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be able to market more products within a shorter time because your turnaround of your products is a lot more faster. This is what I mean by globalization, reducing your time to market time so that you can push and market more products to more countries around the world. This is what I mean by the globalizations. And you have to look at what are some of the implications, because if you don't do that, you're going to be able to have challenge in terms of maintaining your margins and the time to market here that I mentioned early on, how fast you're going to push the market, bring your product out to the market, which is very critical, right? So one of the things that some people will argue saying that globalizations is not necessary for the SME, but there are ways that the globalizations can be adopted by the SME. You may not be the one driving it, but you are part of the ecosystems if you adopt the correct technology, and you are still able to be part of the globalization of the business as well. I think the third trend, this is probably one of the most important right now, that is changing our market, the consumer-driven customization. Right? Taking an example of a mobile phone, which is the best example we can see over the last 10 years. Right? The differentiators, product difference, customized products is driving the demands. Driving these demands actually will demand the manufacturing companies, whether they are supplying parts and components, to innovate, to use new technology, because consumer demand that. The implication is that customer is going to customization, your consumer is going to demand that more customization, more last changes, more demand for change. Just take, for example, of a 7mm thick mobile phone, probably used to be acceptable. Now customer probably want a 5mm thick mobile phone, thinner, lighter, with more features. We can see this change right in front of our eye with Apple, Samsung, Huawei, right? Consumer driving all this customization. So how is the manufacturer and manufacturing companies going to cater for this change? If you do not catch up, you do not able to meet all this consumer demand, then the manufacturers no longer is relevant. It will be obsolete, right? You can't really manage in terms of the demand that if you are subcontractors working for a main con, demand some of the changes, some flexibility in terms of your productions, you have no way to make the adjustment, then guess what? You'll be out. So the traditional manufacturing used to do is they put up a manufacturing plants, prototype them, put all the physical equipment, test it, run it, design some toolings just for that, to test the concept and test the design, what they wanted to do. But if you are building this physical world and the products and the manufacturing line just to test it out, guess what? By the time you finish testing, most of the company that adopt and embrace the technology, it's already completed the projects, completed the work, because it takes a lot of time to build a physical line as a prototyping, which is what manufacturers used to do in the past. But these days, it is getting harder to do that because your turnaround times, from your product design to prototyping to mass productions and go to the market is taking too long. If you were to build a physical prototyping, it is not going to be possible anyway. So the fourth trend, which is what we see the most interesting over the last few years, what we call smart manufacturing, right? Smart manufacturing, and I'm sure a lot of you heard about IoT. So smart manufacturing, the survey Business Insider estimated probably by 2025, there will be about 64 billion connected devices or things in the world. If you recall, I mentioned Industry 3.0, network devices, connected devices, they talk together. Now in 4.0, this smart manufacturing is all these devices, they don't just connect together, they communicate to each other. So just imagine the old manufacturing robotics example just now, I mentioned to you Seagate. They were using automation robots to actually assemble a disk drive and hard drive. When they were assembling the hard drive, disk drive, it is just doing the assembly process. But there was no information feed to them in terms of what this robot is doing, how much time it takes from point A to carry a product to point B, what is the load for lifting this particular component, assembling it, is there a shorter way and faster ways to assemble the products? So what smart manufacturing is about is leveraging on IoT, for example, putting sensor in this robot's arm that attach to it and communicating all the different type of parameters, information to a central computer. This is what smart manufacturing is about. All right. So it is basically intelligent devices connected to each other and communicating, sharing information. The implication is that some of the companies that are actually still doing very manual manufacturing process, this is going to be a challenge because it's going to big change. You have to try and shift from a very traditional manpower-driven manufacturing process to a smart manufacturing. But there is a phased approach that you can do, right? Because smart facility employ intelligent device to produce mass amount of real-time data. So all this data in a smart manufacturing environment will collect the data, and the data will help you drive design. The data will help you make adjustments, fine-tune, so that you can improve in terms of your output and efficiency for a manufacturing environment. And under the smart manufacturing, there is this particular term that's used, is called the advanced machine engineering. Basically what it says is actually, what if we can take a manufacturing plant and create them into this virtual world, a digital world. A digital world that design the whole assembly line in a virtual digital world in front and inside this computer software that I'm doing. Yes, it can be done because this is what we call a virtual commissioning. So the virtual commissioning is before a company actually design and manufacture products, create this digital virtual world to enable the engineers, the designer, to simulate the product design, to validate them before they actually build the actual production line. So one was an interesting thing that this particular simulation software that we are talking about here is that in COVID-19, social distancing was one of the key things, that key criteria. You know, we have to be 1.5 meter away from someone else, or around approximately 4 square meter space. So in a manufacturing environment, this is very difficult. But we are seeing a number of interesting requests and also engagement with customers, particularly in Singapore right now. We have a few, whereby a customer was looking and implementing such a technology to do a virtual manufacturing plant planning, enforcing social distancing in the manufacturing environment. And they can actually simulate a worker going from point A, point B, point C, the route that he or she is walking, and then will they cross path with another person within less than 1.5 meter. That means bridging the social distancing. So this simulation software now has a different approach and different design, helping manufacturing plants to actually leverage on this to simulate the people movement, the worker movement, so that they will not breach the social distancing rules that maybe each country's government has actually adopted. So it's quite an interesting concept, and the software is also a very interesting way of doing commissioning. So what you do is you create a software manufacturing plant in the virtual world, simulate your product design. And with this similar product design, you can fine-tune it. You can put parameters in to your software to actually understand whether there is friction or is it too much heat coming out when this product is moving, right? So it is a very interesting concept, and a number of companies around the world has actually implemented that as well. So this picture is what it's showing you that digital world and simulation is. It is game changer because why? In this picture, this farmer tractors design. They create this product, assemble them, and they simulate this by using different color codes to actually understand what is the implication for aerodynamics with the wind. With the color code, for example, the red color signifies there's heat generated in those places. And they can actually drill down to look at some of the parts interact with each other, whether they are conflicting each other's or maybe they are obstructing it. And it's a game changer because why? Now you don't really need to physically build the products. Just imagine if you have to build these farm tractors, right? The farmers' tractors in the physical world, in a factory. And then how long does it take you to build? 3 months? After 3 months, you have to fine-tune all the parts and components. You can't really do that, right? So digital world, you can do that quite easily. And we're also seeing some customer using adaptive manufacturing, meaning that 3D scanning, 3D printing to make certain parts, prototyping parts as well. And this is also one of the areas we see a lot in the aerospace industries and also the auto industries as well, using 3D printer, 3D scanner to create some prototyping parts and components. So the benefits basically for all this, simulation today is that it actually reduce need for physical prototyping, which is the example I just said to you, right? You don't really need to create special tools because you are trying to build a different manufacturing lines. So you need to create special tools, physical prototypes, so which is very time consuming. So you're going to straight away eliminate that. You reduce cost because you don't need to build a prototyping. So you don't really need to have those parts and special times, material to invest in that. You reduce your cost. You don't have to buy all the materials. You speed up your development process, which is the most important thing because you are going to be able to take your products from a conceptual design to go to market within a shorter time because you create them in the digital world. You simulate them in the digital virtual world so that you actually can see the products in terms of how it interact with each other's, whether you are validating this design, is it correct, or what kind of fine-tuning and changes that you need to make. So next is, I think you must be thinking, wow, all this technology, maybe the smaller company may not be suitable. I think that SME can embrace this technology as well. It is not about only for the big boys. The SME is not able to survive because they don't have the money to invest. But I think this is not completely true. So I take a quote from Charles Darwin that says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that most adaptable to change." So in other words, the SME must also embrace and adapt to the change, whether is it technology, is it the digital world, is it the simulations, all right, smart manufacturing. You could be a small SME, small manufacturing plant. If you adopt the right technology for your industry, your market, based on what the projects you're doing, if you adapt better, then obviously you're going to survive. If you can't, obviously then I don't think you're going to make it. You'll be part of the statistics that tells you you're not going to make it. So there are some 3 key things that I feel maybe it's just my observation where I see this could change now in the next phase towards the next generation manufacturing. This is the term that I use, NGM, because I feel that the manufacturing has to evolve and move to a different generations and different way of approaching the whole solution. The first thing, where I see that manufacturing industry as a whole is that it will come closer to be a more unified and collaborative environment. What I mean by that is that if you are company A, B, C, you are working together to design a product, you have to probably be more unified and collaborate in the manufacturing environment by integrating your supplier, your vendors, your subcontractor as well, right? So you could have your plants in one location, manufacturing plants in JB, but your financial planning in KL, and then maybe your other planning ERP is somewhere else, another country, another locations. So design, manufacturing, planning, all could be in different locations. So it's more unified way to create a manufacturing and designing of products. I do see this is going to change. So this unified way, it's not referring to a same company. You could be different company integrated together and unified to collaborate to manufacturing products. The second thing, which I'm sure all of you heard it before, you're in the IT industry, cloud and SaaS. I see that SaaS, it's a good thing for technology, for business, but there are security considerations. There are also some of the infrastructures in some country may not be able to cope and cater for that. But I do see that the cloud and SaaS will drive the growth. Why? Because it's going to create a unified collaborative environment in manufacturing. And with these 2 points, unified collaborative in manufacturing and SaaS, guess what happened to the COVID-19 right now? Less traveling, we couldn't travel. So I think after this crisis, this pandemic will never be over. Obviously, probably the COVID-19 is still going to be with us for a while. We'll probably go back to a new normal, which is a very different normal than what we used to be last year. And I think that company will start looking at their supply chain and manufacturing plan. Why? Because there are some products, supply chain, and their plants are in one location, China. So there are some company, in fact, I think the majority of company do not have a secondary site with a plant and also the supply chain in another location. So when China shut down, Wuhan shut down, a lot of the plants could not run. And even if the plant and factory up and running, the supply chain is not there. The parts and components are not there, right? So why SaaS and this unified manufacturing network is critical? Why? Because if you imagine that you have one main sites and one redundant sites, cloud SaaS is going to enable you to access the information anywhere, everywhere. So you no longer are restricted to one location. So I think this pandemic is going to make a lot of companies think twice about globalizations in China and manufacturing in China. They have to look at this more as a unified and collaborative in different countries, not concentrated in one country. And the third one, which I think that this is probably going to happen as well. As this crisis slowly roll over or go over to the other side of the hill, I think there will be a lot of manufacturers that will become a specialties or specialists in their own industries because they will probably find themselves not able to do so many different products, so many industries, but it is better to focus on what you are best with rather than jacks of all trades. Just do what you are good at, become a specialist, and connected yourself to part of this NGM within a manufacturing networks. So market yourself as a specialist and specialties for that particular industries, which I feel is a very critical thing. So where I envision this 2025 is in this manufacturing industry is that I mentioned a couple of those things there already. You can design anywhere, build anywhere. Additive manufacturing, which is a 3D printing, 3D scanning. Most of the things I mentioned are probably fairly accurate. I would think that they are relevant in our context and probably in the next 5 years, with the exception of 5G connectivity, which is questionable because of different political reasons and infrastructures as well. But the rest of it, all related to manufacturing, they are all relevant. And some, it's there. Touchless factory in the middle here. If you can see, touchless factory here. This is what I mean in terms of building sensor, attaching sensor to robotics and automation, collect information so that you have all the data, you can analyze the information, make decisions, right, based on those data that you collect, machine to machine connectivity, flexible electronics. So all these are there, already getting there as well. So where I see in terms of manufacturing is very critical is that for SME actually to to survive. I don't think, like I repeated many times, it's not these solutions is suitable for SME as well. For SME, what the SME need to do at a smaller company is that you need to do a business plan to understand where you play, how you can leverage on the technology, because the technology is just going to help you on long term. If you invest the technology correctly, it is not going to be a burden to you, because if you work out your return on investment, it can work for you for the type of products that you do. But if you play in multiple markets, and that's where maybe it's a bit challenging, because if you play in multiple sectors, multiple industry and markets, then your investment potentially will be in multiple fold as well. So you have probably, each company may have to look at this very differently, how you can embrace the technology, how you can embrace the smart manufacturing and adopt this to increase your productivity and also your efficiency, so that you can cut down the turnaround time for your product to time to market, and so that increase your profitability as well. So last but not least, and if you guys are keen, some of you could be IT companies, some of you could be customers as well, or resellers. If you have opportunity, you're interested, no obligation, you can contact us. We are more than happy to share some of the solutions with you. And if you have opportunity, referral deal is probably the most simple and straightforward way for us to work with you as well. So otherwise, if you want more information, let us know. We're happy to just catch up with you and discuss a little bit further and share our thoughts as well. So thank you very much.